Good afternoon, all. Actually, I should say hi or good morning. Wherever you are in the world, we are celebrating women in the world of science. We are celebrating Black women in the world of science. And tonight, well, today, we have a psychologist. Let me read to you a little bit about her. Her name is
Yeah,
Towella Ngambi.
yeah.
She is the principal lecturer for the Institute of Foundation Studies at Arden University in the UK. Towella's teaching experience spans over 25 years within pupil referral units, secondary schools, further education, and HE. She has also worked in various social care establishments and been engaged in projects which enhance access to employment and education. Towella has always been passionate in science and was a member of the Junior Engineer and Technicians Club in her native Zambia. She also took pure sciences at secondary school. Upon moving to the UK, Towella started working within health and social care and put her scientific knowledge to good use there before training as a teacher and a psychologist. Towella enjoys teaching the biological psychology module most of all and has often taken students on trips to the Institute of Neurology where they get to hear about all the research going on within brain studies. And I would like to welcome Towella. Good afternoon, or actually, hi. I keep on saying this. Right.
Hi, thank you, Rijoli. So how you say your name,
Nope.
Rijoli?
Rihole,
Rijol?
Rihole,
Rihole. Oh,
Rihole.
it's a fabulous name.
Thank you, thank you. My
Rihole.
mother gave me this name. So tell us a little bit about you. I was reading your bio, but tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, so I'm really passionate about science. I have, which is why I took the route into psychology. And I think we had this discussion at the beginning where
Mhm.
people don't always realize that psychology is a science. So I'm passionate about getting young people, most especially young Black people, into psychology, because traditionally it's been a very elitist type of subject. I have two children, two young STEMettes. In my house, we started our journeys with science when they were very young because they had a scientific mother. So one's doing pure sciences A levels, and one's still doing her GCSEs. So therefore, I'm passionate about them as much as I'm passionate about other young people in the community, ensuring we all do well. I'm from Zambia. It's in Southern Africa. I've lived in the UK for around about 27 years or more. I think actually it's 30 something years. I've forgotten. But I still believe in that Ubuntu community style of living because of how I got brought up. So if I do well and others don't do well, I don't think that's quite right. So I'm still, so I do every little thing that I can do, and that's why I'm here, really.
All
Real.
right. For
Yeah.
those that don't understand what Ubuntu means, Ubuntu is the collectiveness, the knowing
Yeah.
that if you don't make it, or if your neighbor doesn't make it, we are not making it. So there's no there's no I without the we.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So that is Ubuntu for those of you that don't understand that principle. But then I want to ask you, what inspired you to become a psychologist and to have all this interest in the sciences?
I would say my mom bought a book called Psychology, Introduction to Psychology. I read through it, and the very, I suppose the very first thing I read in there was that psychology was a science looking at why we do what we do. And as a young person, I often wondered about why people behaved in certain ways. And therefore, upon moving to the UK, I still had that question at the back of my mind. Why are people treating me this way? Why are they treating me differently? Why do people behave that way when it's not? It doesn't really help. But going back to my secondary school years, I had a fantastic group of science teachers with next to nothing resources. They had us imagining experiments because they had no chemicals. So I'm talking about Zambia, 1993-ish to 1996, no chemicals,
Wow.
no, perhaps no calcium, but they made you imagine it. And because of that, they would take us outside and teach us practically and say to us, so this stone is made of, these are the chemicals, look what happens when the sun, shines on it. Here's how we can use this glass as a magnifying glass and start a fire. It was things like that. They had to come up with really innovative ways to teach us the sciences. And look, I think it started from there, and therefore I joined the JETS Club, which is the Junior Engineers and Technicians.
Was that in Zambia, joining the club?
That was in Zambia, and I went to a girls' school, and the amount of girls that were coming up with solutions based on sciences. I mean, I remember one of the girls was looking into how can we make better sanitary towels. And it's all those things that made me think, oh, can you do that with science? And then one of the girls was looking at skin. How can we use more natural substances for our skins? What sort of chemicals are in these natural substances? Because we were given projects to do in that JETS club.
That is really interesting. So would you say that the attitudes towards women and starting a career, well, not career, but being interested in science was actually thanks to a very, I don't want to say liberal, but open-minded.
It was an open-minded set of teachers, male and female, but I think the fact that we were in a girls' school, they gave us the best, and they wanted us to be the best. So it was communist Zambia at the time. So historically, that's something somebody can go and look into, which means we were I don't know what the word is, but we were filtered into the sciences or the arts. So there wasn't a choice like you do in the UK. You were either put into the sciences group or the arts group. You didn't choose. Yeah. So one would think when you arrive in such a place, you may not be motivated. So I think the teachers understood that. So they began to motivate us regarding these subjects. So yes, they had a very positive attitude towards sciences. Yeah.
I know that you have left Zambia a long time ago, but what would you say is happening in Zambian schools right now in terms of STEM education?
I am absolutely blown away by what is going on. There's more young women getting into technology, developing apps. There's more young women becoming doctors. If you look at the graduation figures, they're improving year in, year out. Look, African parents want 3 careers: medicine, maybe lawyers, or accountants. And so in terms of being motivated by parents, they are always going to motivate you to go towards the sciences. And I think that's had an impact as well in Zambia. Yeah.
So do you think would you say that is the same thing, because you had daughters that were born in this country, I believe? Did you find the same here in the UK? Do you think that the attitudes towards girls starting science was as open as it's back in Zambia?
Yes, I find that it's positive. I communicate largely. I live in a largely African community, but there's a wide range of Black people in my community. But I find that parents still want the best. They're still aspirational concerning their children. They'll put that extra effort in for them to become doctors. And because they're heading in that direction to start with, they will have to do science, they will have to do maths. And then there's also been a recognition that technology brings in income. So, you know, from an African background, it's all about that income as well. So when they see that technology brings in income, they will encourage the child to do IT studies or whatever they have to do. And of course, engineers, you know, there's a large Nigerian community where I live. And, you know, some of them are addressed even as women: Engineer Julie, Engineer John, Engineer. So it's always, it's very motivational for, I suppose, young people to be called Engineer Jack or whatever it is.
So am I right to say that schools in your area are actually preparing young people across the community to lead in the job market and also in that sector as well?
I believe because the parents have an impact on the schools. So as I said, it's a largely African community. When I go for open days and when I used to teach, the mothers would come in, or the fathers, and they'll be very present. And maths is one area that the kids better not fail in, or science, because, you know, they'll be told off. And sometimes they'll tell them off in front of us as teachers. So I believe that because the parents have an impact, parents need to be present. There is still more to be done. Listen, there's not a lot of science clubs in my area, as opposed to other well-to-do areas where there are app building clubs, there are science clubs. I'd like to see a lot more robotics being taught, maybe from primary school level. There's not a lot of that going on. So I'm in HE. So by the time a young person meets me, they're coming to university. So you know, if I ask about their journey, you may find that they haven't got any extracurricular scientific things to do. And remember, I started off with extracurricular you know, stuff, the Jets Club, for example. There are some clubs in schools, but they could really do much better.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I wanted to say something, just something to do with careers, because I was speaking to actually a junior IT engineer, and she told me that while she was at university, it was all about the career. But then when she finished, she realized that she didn't have the skills to actually go through the interview, write her own CV, and even write her own personal statement. Do you think that should be part of whatever career in STEM? Do you think that should be taken into account?
Yes, absolutely. And the British Psychological Society have a link on their website for careers where that sort of advice is available. But they're also assuming that perhaps you have other people around you that might explain certain terms. So if you think about a normal immigrant Black family, that child, that young person may not necessarily have that support there because the parents are coming in with experience from abroad. In terms of behaviors, work behaviors, emotional intelligence, that's a little bit lacking in our young Black people. So you are right, we do need some sort of program. We have that at my university, but I think university-wide within schools, there needs to be a realization that these young people are perhaps second generation. They don't understand the networking part of going up in your career. So we kiss our teeth a lot as Black people. I'm not trying to, so it's that. So you kiss your teeth a lot at home, then you get into the workplace and you kiss your teeth. And it's a very middle class white environment. it may not really work in your favor. Hair is another one sometimes. You know, I've got my wig on today, but usually I've got natural hair. That's another one that I've seen that can have an impact as well. So it's preparing and speaking to young people and saying, do not be afraid, be you. Go in, be you. However, even in my home, kissing teeth is quite rude, really. But
it's rude everywhere in the world.
Yeah,
let's put that clear. It's rude.
Be polite. Go in, do your work, do your job, and you know, and you will shine through. So I think they need that sort of motivator as well. I've got a few Black ladies that have sort of said to me, oh, don't worry about that comment, you know, somebody wanting to touch my hair at work or whatever. I know. So they'll say to me, don't worry about it. Don't worry too much. This is how you can explain it to the person so that they know you don't want that boundary crossed. So you might say, oh, you know, Susie, did you know that asking to touch a Black person's hair isn't quite right? Like, if I asked to keep touching your hair, how would that feel? So that's different.
Hang on a minute. She will file for harassment.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Or assault, you know, she touched me, and it's not appropriate, because if he was a man,
it's not appropriate.
It's not appropriate to do that.
Somebody needs to say to a young person that's just started their career. I remember when I just started my career, I needed someone to say to me, another Black person to say to me, listen to this. This is how you put it through. It's not all right. This is how you can put your point across and still work here and be respected and still get on in your journey. So yeah, So
in these instances, can you say then that a mentor would be very beneficial for any young Black person starting a career?
Absolutely. Riole, traditionally in African culture, we always have a mentor. There's a big mama somewhere. They mentor you in your marriage. They mentor you in how you bring up your children. It only stands to reason that it would be really useful to have someone to mentor you in careering as well and getting ahead in your career. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what advice can you give to children, actually not to children, to parents who have very little resources and they see their child with a lot of potential in certain areas? Not necessarily STEM, but in any areas. What advice would you give?
Yeah, I would say be open-minded, support them in whatever they want to do, show utmost support, tell them they can make it. Everybody wants to hear that they can make it and you're behind them, come what may. So listen, when we go out as Black people, there are people already fighting us out there. The last thing you want is your own family fighting against you and the plans that you have for your life. So if you see they've got a talent, support them. Always express, don't express disappointment, express basically that you are proud of them. Now, can I just be honest, Riole? Some careers may not bring instant finances, and lots of us in our community, we want our children to do well and have finances. So I've got a daughter who draws really well. She's a very good artist. However, I've had that conversation with her. When do you think you will be able to make money in this? Because I think you need to think about how you will live and still follow your passion. I think I'll do this career. I'll be a dentist, mommy, and then I'll carry on drawing. And when my drawing picks up, I'll go into my drawing. And I think that's you've got to look at the realities of life and present them before your children and involve them in that decision making as well.
All right, thank you very much. You mentioned that your career or your dream into psychology began with a book. So what is that book that you would recommend any young person to read right now? So
I read it's called Introduction to Psychology. There are lots of books like that called, around psychology. There's a book I'm reading right now, which I would recommend every young Black woman to read. It's called Slay in Your Lane. I haven't got it in front of me, but it's written. It's got influential Black women and how they succeeded within the UK career market. So there's situations, as I described, about the hair. There's situations about people saying, I can't pronounce your name. Yeah, so you know, Riole, when I tried to pronounce your name, you were sort of, my mother gave me this name, because and I know to an African, a name is everything. My name has meaning. So you take away my name, you take away my identity.
Yeah. I think mispronouncing it, I accept that people might mispronounce it. It happens a lot of the time.
Yeah,
but what I don't accept is people that come with an alternative. Oh, can I call you this? I find that rude. That is just
exactly rude. I always get an alternative, and it's always been like that. You know, I had part of my secondary school here, so they called me T, which is why you found that that's my pseudonym online. But then, you know, one day I thought my name means something, and everyone has to call me Towella, because in African terms, the more they say your name, the more your identity based on that name comes out. So if your name is Grace, you become more gracious. You know, and some names are prayers. You know, so somebody will be praying for you to be more joyous or more happier or whatever it is. So so that book helps you sort of deal with some of these things and how these women fought and got to the top. So that's another book I would recommend. It's called Slaying Your Lane. I know you asked me earlier to look up. I can email you the website. It's
no problem.
I'm also reading Jay Shetty at the moment, Think Like a Monk, because I read a variety of books. We started writing as Black people, but I like to read from all sorts.
Yeah, me too. I think it's really important. Very good for personal development. Very good.
Personal development. And that's a really good book. Talks about meditation, talks about, you know, your inner self and so on. So, and that lines up with my work. So I like to read that as well.
Thank you very much. I think it's been a very passionate interview. I love this interview. I really loved it. And I really liked your insight into Zambia, because I never knew that Zambia, actually, that we have African countries that from very, very long time, they've been leading and actually believing in the young people, which is something that I don't see in my country. I'm originally from Equatorial Guinea. And one of the things that really disappoints me is the fact that the people in charge don't believe in the children and the young people's potential. So they don't invest in them at any level. So you won't hear about any clubs of science. You won't hear anything about. It's still very colonial-based learning, which in the scale of the global world, it doesn't take you anywhere.
Absolutely, I agree.
And it's having an impact on the mental of many of the young people and people in my country.
Yeah, it takes away your confidence. I guess I grew up at a time in Zambia where, you know, women were doing things, and you know, you look to your left, there was a doctor, and we had a scientific research center as well, which we would visit. We visited, I think we visited an abattoir, saw how a pig was being put, you know, cut into pieces. I don't want to go into it, but they were just showing us. And in biological terms, you get, see, oh, is that a heart? Is that? And then they showed us science in everyday life. You cut a chicken and you think, why is it running around? And someone will give you a scientific explanation. Well, the nervous system is still in operation. That's why it's running around. But very soon it will fall to the ground, and you start to think in scientific terms. And remember, there aren't many resources in these countries, but they are turning out quite brilliant young men and women. Yeah,
I think the key thing is caring and loving. You know, those are the two key words: caring and loving your people.
Absolutely. And Ubuntu. Let's not forget that. There is a Nigerian you know, proverb which says, if you throw a stone into the marketplace, be very careful, because it might hit your relative. That just means we are one. So what you do, your neighbor's son is your son, because you never know, that might be the person that will marry your daughter because they live next door to each other. And so, you know, that competitiveness, we need to think better about it, care about each other, love each other, look after each other, because we've only got each other, to be honest. So yeah,
most definitely. Thank you very much, Towella.
No problem, Riole.
So that was Towella, psychologist, mother, and I think you are a humanitarian. For what I see, you are someone that loves people. Thank you very much for your input, and I hope that people actually take action and they implement some of your advice so they can, you know, see some improvement in certain areas of their lives. Thank you very much for listening all.